Hey there, and welcome to Bold Badass Business, where we bring you badasses from across the globe. And you all, today, we are going to have real magic here because we have Nicole Majik, who is an empowerment alchemist. Nicole has worked on documentaries. She works with her clients with cognitive behavioral therapy and NLP. She's an author, a speaker, and just an interesting person who I've had the privilege of talking to on a number of occasions. And, today we're talking about a great topic because there are a lot of people stewing in their poo. Would you say, Nicole?
Oh, yeah.
Today we're going to talk about don't stew in your poo, business and life lessons from a near death experience. How interesting is that? Because there's something about stewing in our poo that creates more poo, and then there's more poo, and suddenly you have a shit storm, a poo storm.
Yes, you do. And then you don't know what to do with all that, right? So it
Right.
feels like a mountain of poo around you. And we want to take that and we want to spread it like manure that's a fertilizer rather than, suffocating it.
Compost that baby, you know what I mean? Like, it's great compost. Yeah, and I know that you've done this, Nicole. You and I've talked about this. And by the way, you all, Nicole has an awesome podcast called Miracles and Magic and Miracles, rather. Magic, Majik, spell it right. She spells it like her last name, and Miracles, that you can find and listen to. And we've talked about this before, how those things that may seem like the darkest night of the soul for us
Yeah.
can actually end up becoming the catalyst and inspiration for what we give to the world and for who we are in the world and for our brand and business. So I'm wondering, first of all, just tell us really quickly, what is it that is so cool about the work that you do? How are you different from other coaches and people who work in the space of transformation?
Okay. So I'm going to use some of the words that my clients have used back towards me after sessions or working with me. And I get a lot of, when they come to me, it's, I know what I need to do, but I don't know why I can't get myself to do it.
Mm.
I've been called the focus finder by my creatives, and they get really centered and focused and get the stuff done. The transformation that happens, and I'm feeling like it might get a little emotional here, because it's that transformation when people feel like they are so overwhelmed and they're just so stuck, and then all of a sudden the light bulbs go off during our work together.
Yep.
And everything makes sense, and you just see that lightning bolt of aha, and I know exactly what I need to do. I do a lot of soul retrieval, healing work, past life, epigenetic clearing out, and those kinds of things. So it's that layered effect of what's yours, what's your ancestors, and what past lives, and being able to align your divine purpose with your values and your aspirations, and creating the aligned action to get there. So when we pull it all together, it just feels so simple, so easy, and just like magic. So a few people that I worked with, especially the last few days, so those are the words that stick in my head, is especially recent things when you see somebody just kind of, oh my God, my entire life now makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel whole and confident when I felt stuck and insecure. So
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. And you're like me, you combine a lot of modalities, so you do the traditional, some of the more traditional work, and you do the other work that is, that is some people call it healing work. I just like to refer to it as different modalities, because the truth of the matter is that we are energy. Matter is energy. We are matter, matter, you all. We're matter and we're energy. This is a reality. And so it makes sense that we need to not just work with our intellect and our emotional being, but also work with our energetic being, with
Right.
this matter that we are given for this lifetime. And, I was thinking too, as you were speaking, Nicole, I'm sure there's some people out there. I'm just reading the minds of my listeners now. I'm reading y'all's minds, y'all. Call into the Psychic Network. I can hear you. And what I'm feeling is that some people are like, past life regression, what the heck is that? I don't believe in that. Look, y'all, you don't have to believe in it. It's all right. You can still have benefits. I've had people come to me for regressions, Nicole. They came in for normal business coaching, and we ended up saying, where the heck did this come from? And it became very clear it was some other time, right? Other incarnation. And even if you don't believe in that, what I always say to folks is consider it an extended metaphor. You don't have to believe in it, but consider what we do an extended metaphor that is coming through from your subconscious into the conscious realm for you to use.
Exactly. Kind of like a dream has a lot of symbolic
That
meaning and wisdom.
exactly. And we can unpack that. And it's so powerful to do that, And like you say, it's that wonderful moment with our clients when they say, oh my God, now I get it. I see so clearly why that happened, why it needed to happen, and how it's led me to the work that I do. So I love that. Well, so how long have you been interested in the kinds of things that you do? How long have you been on this path of magic in everyday life?
Okay, so that might be a little bit layered because how long versus how long professionally, I'll tell you that. I've
Aha.
auras, energy, spirits, all that stuff, all of my life. So that intuitive part has always been there. I have had near-death experiences, which have been very profound and increasing my intuition and understanding of a lot of different life things. And I've had my business professionally and in place for 16 years now. And as far as like the hypnosis kind of work, um, I've been doing that since I was 12.
Love that. Yeah. You just didn't exactly know what it was, but you were doing it.
I was actually taking my friends through hypnotic inductions and regressions innately since I was 12 because when back then I would take them through different things to empower them or delve deeper into the psyche and get them the information from their guides um, that was going to help them in their present. So I didn't realize it then, but I did do that, and I taught one of my friends to do it to me because I wanted to do it too.
I love that. And that's so interesting. You used the word you were intuitively and innately doing it. And I do believe that these abilities are things that can be passed on through our ancestors, and they also can be passed on through the multiple forms that our soul has taken, the different bodies and different forms that it's taken. It's that energy of conservation of mass. Energy is never lost or destroyed. It just changes form. This is a law of physics for those of you listening. And think about that. We're matter, we're energy. And so this thing that is you, this body and your hair and your eyes and your feet and all of that, well, guess what? It doesn't just go away when you die. It's got to change form. That's a law of the universe. It's physics.
Absolutely. And I understood that at a very different level during one of my near death experiences when I
Mm-hmm.
went through that portal and fast forward I there was so much stuff going on that I had to learn to understand, and some things I just understood and other things that didn't make sense, and I it was like the puzzle piece wasn't fitting quite in the spot. But when you think about it, we can die in one dimension and our essence can get moved into another one, and then there you are. So whether you pop into a dimension where you're the same person or a different person determines maybe what you're carrying forward and what you remember versus what you don't.
See, this is really interesting because I have a friend who was resuscitated 13 times, Nicole. And he's an amazing spirit. And he was young and had this heart attack. And he happened to be at the metaphysical church where I attend. And he was resuscitated 13 times. He and I have always had a special bond. He's 364 days older than me. So we've always had this connection of both being Aries and fiery and creative and all of that. But I remember going to see him, and he said, "Oh, Bardsley, it's so good to see you. You know, I saw you in Italy, and then I saw you at UNC, and da da da." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't doubt that you did," because he'd had this injury to his brain, and he was out there traveling around. You know, he was out there traveling around. I said, "Okay, yeah." And it was interesting. And I do kind of feel that when people get dementia, for instance, there's one foot in this world and another foot somewhere else, you know, and it becomes very, very confusing for obvious reasons. But, yeah. So there's the spiritual underpinnings.
It's a whole other episode.
Yeah, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
I saw it with my grandfather. I'll tell you what, he had Alzheimer's, gosh, for like 17 or 18 years. And, once in a while he'd like come back in, and, he was there for a second and then he was just off again. It was very interesting. So let's get right into these near-death experiences, or at least the one that you want to share, and start talking about some of these lessons that can really support my listeners in their life and their business. Because gosh, it occurs to me that having that very close brush with death means that you begin to question a lot of things that maybe you took for granted or just assumed they should be the way they were. And then after it happens, you think, that's got to change.
Yeah. So there's so much. I'm being guided to say this before I say anything. Just like Nikola Tesla has said, everything is vibration, frequency, energy, right? So if everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, in order to have something different, that vibration needs to change, or one of those needs to change, the frequency, the vibration, or both. And when you look at it, anything that we're doing, when we shift, there's the potential for that existential crisis that you just mentioned there, that who am I? What am I doing? What's going on? And the questions that we have. So that is alchemization. So it's our inner alchemy that we go through in order to grow and, foster this change. So if you're in that space, I just want whoever is there, you feel like you're freaking out. It sometimes feels very deep. It feels very dark, and it feels very lonely because you're not sure who you are. It's confusing. It can be overwhelming. If you have somebody that you can reach out to, at least say, can you check up on me? I'm doing some deep work here. I do that when I go deep in, because you don't know how long it's going to take. Sometimes it takes, a few minutes in a way, but if you're doing a real existential crisis, it lasts a few days, and you don't want to get stuck in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, the near-death experience brought a lot of light on a lot of different things. And I'm trying to figure out how to enter into this, because I usually tell the story a little bit differently than I feel like I should tell today. Going into that near-death experience, there was about a year where I was completely lost in my life, because I felt like everything was just not where it was supposed to be. It's not what I envisioned it to be. It's not what I wanted, and I wanted out. I just wanted to die. And I obsessed about death every single day and pretty much almost every single moment of every single day. At the time, I had 3 little boys. One was a newborn baby. And I didn't like my life at all. So
Mm-hmm.
every moment I thought there were a million different ways that I could leave this planet. And I thought about every single one that I recognized or noticed throughout the day. But because I had these children, I had this mantra in my head also that I would fantasize about the death. And then I would immediately go into, okay, but these kids need you. So they need me here. They need me here. So
Mm-hmm.
just you hold on just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. And that's all that my day consisted of was just a little bit longer. Do what I needed to do, you know, ants marching. And finally, one day, I had a near death experience on the highway where another car came up, hit another car, came up over the Jersey barrier, and was about to land on my lap. And the short of it is, everything went in super slow motion. My brain was in hyper focus and hyper speed. So I was having everything happen at warp speed in my head, yet everything around me was going super slow, like a frame by frame. So
Mm-hmm.
I ended up having conversations with all my loved ones to say goodbye because I saw how I was dying with this guy landing in my lap. And his car was going to hit my car, crunch over my car. The roof was going to come down on my head, snap my neck, and I was dead. And when I saw that vision, everything went black after I said goodbye to my family. And then I went through the portal. And then, oh, this was during rush hour traffic on Massachusetts Turnpike, too, by the way. So
Mm.
it was bumper to bumper. There was a lot going on that day. We don't have time to get into all the details, which is kind of fun. But the short of it, again, was I came to and I was gripping my steering wheel, and it was like I came up out of the water after being nearly drowned, and I just came through and like and I was holding my steering wheel. So I was like came through like I was trying to breathe. And then I looked in my rear view and I'm looking around saying, oh my God, I almost just died. Oh my God, I should have been dead. And then there's no cars on the highway, not in front of me, not behind me, not on the other side. I was away from where I actually was when this incident took place. And I was thinking, oh my God, am I dead? So I had called my mom, who, when she answered, she's like, oh my God, Nikki, are you okay? I was just praying for you. Blah, 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 blah. She went into this whole big thing. And I'm like, wait, Mom, am I dead? And she's like, no, you're not dead. But what happened after that, like the incident is really interesting. And the really strange part about it is when I went through that portal and came out, I ended up 2.5 miles away from where it happened.
Physically.
Yeah. Physically.
Wow.
In my
Okay.
car that was not
Wow.
hit, nothing. And I
Wow.
couldn't explain it. And it was the most bizarre thing. And talk about like short circuit for a second, like what actually
You got like lifted up and taken, chitty chitty bang bang,
right
through there.
right through a portal. But fast forward like a whole bunch, because there were things that didn't make sense. And I latched on to, okay, maybe I had a walk-in experience. And that's what made the most sense at the time, because I went through that existential crisis. I didn't feel like myself. I was recognizing all these little anomalies that were different from what I remembered. My kids even had different memories of personal experiences that we had as a family. And, my husband at the time had said, I can't believe you don't remember that, because that was like one of the most memorable days that we've had. And like, I remember it completely differently than that. And so I was like, am I nuts? Am I crazy? What is going on? I can't talk to anybody. Nobody, I'm going to end up in the loony bin. All this stuff is that you go through all these things in your head because you're trying to sort through everything that can't fully be sorted through because you don't have all the information either. So I went into this whole exploration of who am I and going deeper into that. Meanwhile, my intuitive gifts were amped up. So that only added to this what is happening. So, I mean, I could see things around people even more than I used to. I could see illnesses and negative energies, and I could clear them out in the matter of minutes. I had people that, like, I would just be like, "Oh, do you have a headache?" And I'd touch their head, and they're like, "It just went away when you touched it," and just weird stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, now, and then people would get freaked out sometimes. So then it was, what should I do and what shouldn't I do? And when the upbringing that I had, my intuitive gifts were kind of feared more, or they were looked at as not so great, more taboo.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of stifled in that sense, or I shouldn't speak about it. I shouldn't tell people about it. I shouldn't say those things. So there was a lot that I had to come to terms with about who the F is Nicole and what do I want in my life.
I love that. Well, this whole thing of not talking about our intuitive gifts, thankfully, I mean, it is changing. And now that people are talking about emotional intelligence, there's a lot more acceptance of, I would say, and human intuition as part of this equation. It's interesting. It's really interesting because so many faith traditions will kind of demonize these things, but the truth of the matter is that, for example, if you're in the Christian tradition, they were prophets. There were people seeing stuff, wild stuff, right? And talking about it. Um, there's a lot. And if you look at any of the great mystical traditions, there are people having these mystical experiences frequently, and I think there's not a huge space for this at all in our society. There really isn't. There isn't much space for it, you know there's
No.
not a space where we, for example, go get initiated into something. The best initiation we have is usually getting our driver's license, Sad.
I know.
You know?
There's so much. One thing I do want to say about that experience is when I came through to the other side, I didn't have that wanting to die anymore.
Mm,
I actually had a fervor for life. And I wanted to
interesting.
share that and the healing of that with people. Um, and just all that positive energy because I felt like I understood so much, right? And even the people that um, told me that I was wrong or bad or whatever
Yeah.
for whatever they feared or didn't understand. I just had a completely different understanding about other people.
Mm-hmm.
I became very understanding about myself and that this was my life to live.
Yes, and some people are going to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and some are not.
Yeah. Everybody else gets to choose what they want in their own lives. Whether you exercise it or not, that's one thing. Because that's why people project and do all this other stuff and try to control other people because they don't feel powerful enough in their lives. They don't feel empowered for whatever reason. And there's nothing bad or wrong with that either. It's just their own stuff that is coming to the surface to learn from. But when it gets projected out onto everybody else, um, it's the ownership is not taken, so it doesn't change. So that's really what it's about, is taking responsibility and ownership in your own life so that you can exercise your free will to create whatever it is that you truly want based on your desire, your purpose, and your aligned actions that you take to get there.
and you can begin to conceive of it. You know, when I enroll people in my Reiki trainings, my transformational Reiki healing trainings, I always ask 3 questions. And one is, what do you see within yourself that needs to go, that's holding you back? And it's something within yourself. We're not talking about externals. The second question is, when this begins to shift, what do you want to create? What becomes possible for you in your life, in your business, in your relationships? And then the third one is, what is the experience of life that you want to have? Do you want to have the experience of peace or joy or flow or connection, excitement, or all of those, whatever? But the thing is, we're the ones who create the meaning in our lives, you know, unless we just kind of swallow wholeheartedly dogmas that are set up by society and by certain, you know, by faith traditions. There are a lot of ways dogmas are set up. Even in the media, we get tacitly acculturated, as they call it, by what we see. In the news, we definitely do. So
Right.
how do we step outside that? And I love that you shared this experience, which is very mystical, that you were on the road driving. How many of us drive here? Say yes in the comments, right? We all know about that. But suddenly, and you could see all this stuff that was going to happen. And when you say you called these people you love, you meant with your mind. You just said, I love you, I miss you, whatever, I love you. Not you were on your cell phone. And then you were two and a
It
half
was
miles away, and this time had passed, and you were saying, what the heck? How did I get here? And what happened? And I'm okay, and my car is okay. So that kind of mystical experience, these things can happen in life. They really can. And I would say to people, you know, a lot of times folks get freaked out about it. They get scared of it, but it's there. And so often it's those that we love in the beyond, in the light, who are communicating with us. They're trying to communicate with us. And it's also our helpers, our angels, who are definitely, you had some serious angels that day. You know what I mean? For real.
It was very interesting because what I recognized later, um, when some other things kind of came together and made all this sense, I realized that I died in that other dimension and I was transported through a portal into another dimension that had my existence in it and very similar. So I feel like we can hop these dimensions in certain ways where you're not going to hop into one where everything is completely changed
Right.
or you're going to short circuit. So you're going to hop into one that is very similar but has some little differences in them. So I actually got out of work an hour late that day. So perhaps I got out of work 45 minutes earlier. I mean, 15 minutes earlier that, but 45 minutes late instead, because that would have put me right about where I was um, in another reality. Some of the things I like pictures were in places that they weren't in my house. And like, who moved the picture? And it's like, that
Ooh,
was always
that
there.
gives me some chills right there.
Right.
Whoa.
Okay, whatever. It was always there. No, it wasn't. And instead of argue about it, it was like argue for a little bit and then just be like, okay, I'm in a really like weird place right now. And then just like having amplified intuitive properties of just knowing things and these visions that came. And I have visions that I had back then that are still coming to fruition.
Mm,
And
beautiful.
that was in 2006 is when that near death experience happened.
Mm,
Um, but I feel like understanding that I died in that other dimension. Here's where it gets kind of really cool, everyone, when it comes to communicating with past loved ones. Okay. Because what I understood, one of my friends asked me afterwards, once everything started making all this sense, She's like, well, how is it that I still feel the presence of my parents? Like, how does that work then? And automatically I was like, oh, that's easy. Taking the instance of me dying in that dimension, that means I left 3 boys behind. That means I didn't have my daughter. But those 3 boys, that every time I think about them, because I carried information from that life into this one, because I needed to retain the memory of that experience so that I can move forward and tell a profound story and tell and relate to people that were in that same deep depression and not seeing a way out, and then it changing and now being able to access that for other people and bring them into that space. Every time I think about those kids, I can send encouraging words to them, and I think about them. I say, you know, what great job they are, because I've watched them grow up here beyond what they've grown up to be in there, these little tiny kids. So I can encourage them. And whenever I send the message, guess what? They're receiving a message from me from beyond.
So I'm watching Outlander, and I love Outlander. And I'm just thinking about that sort of, that time skipping, and however we might consider this going into other dimensions or somehow being connected to a future you and a past you and this continuum of your soul, right? This continuum that is there. It's just really fascinating that you could move around in there and connect with different pieces, so to speak. And, for some of you, this may feel really esoteric and you can be like, that just sounds too way out. But think of it this way. How many times do we have a memory from childhood that is so palpable that it's just like we've just gone right back there? For real. So you know what it feels like to have that experience. And how many times do you have a dream while you're asleep and you go somewhere else and it's something happens and you come back to you wake up and you're like, oh my God, is so and so okay? And that dream goes with you through the day. It's almost like you've traveled to another place and experienced another dimension that way too. So our minds are more adept at this than most people know, right? And we can actually work with our intuitive ability. And that's something I love with the Reiki, is that people get their energy centers opened and balanced in that. And then suddenly you start to have intuition happening even more than it did before. And I remember actually, Nicole, starting to see energy around people. And I was teaching at UNC, and I had my best student was giving a presentation, and instead of listening to her, she was an A+ student. So I'm sure it was a great presentation, but I was just like, look at that purple around her head. Isn't that interesting? And then I realized what was happening, and I said, oh my God, I'm seeing the field of energy around her. And I got myself a little freaked out. But these things it's not extrasensory perception, it's perception.
Yeah.
It's not extrasensory, it's perception. And if we just work with that and have a spiritual practice, such as Reiki, such as hypnosis, such as prayer, such as meditation, if we have a spiritual practice, then it will begin to happen for us, and it'll happen to the degree that we're willing to do the work, spend the time,
Absolutely. And if we take that, I mean, our intuition guides us through every part of our lives. So whether you're looking to grow in your business or you're looking to grow personally, your intuition is guiding you in such a way where it's your divine passion, your divine purpose, coupled with whatever it is that you desire, and taking aligned action for that. So staying true to your integrity and staying true to your values is going to keep you in that alignment.
And knowing what you want. right?
Exactly.
Getting clear about that, because sorry, I could blindfold you, spin you around and say, hit this target on the wall, and you would not hit it because you don't know where the target is. You have to know where your target is in business and in life. You have to know. And this is where in my Make It Happen Mastermind, we get so clear. Every month we do declarations and they are specific. And I train my people exactly how we do this. And there is no wiggle room to backdoor to get out of it, you know? And then we don't worry about the how. We just create the declaration. I write 100 pages of my book and da 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 minimum, and we just get so crystal clear about it, and then the universe supports us in having it happen, which is pretty amazing. Well, you know, Nicole, you and I could talk forever. We really could. I know that. And we just have a few more minutes, you know.
Oh my
It's such a good discussion here. You know, there are a few things I just want to say to everybody that I heard, and I'd love to hear what you heard up in the comments. So you all listening, just put something that you heard. But something I heard is be open to the possibility of your intuition taking you to places you've never considered and showing you a way, showing you another way of approaching quote unquote reality, right? Just as you can do dream interpretation, you can interpret anything that you visualize in your life or that you that pops into your head. You can try it on and see if that isn't a stroke of wisdom, if you're not channeling some sort of higher awareness there, right? So it's about openness. And also, what I also heard is about depression, that we're not alone, that many people go through it. And sometimes we may dramatically even create a near-death experience. Some people do that with, you know, suicide attempts, right? And however we may do it, our body may get ill, we may have an accident, you know, or maybe somebody actually tries to cut themselves or whatever. But that when you come out of that, you can indeed wake up and have a fervor for life that you didn't have before, you know?
Absolutely.
But you're not alone. You're not alone. And these psychotic episodes, I'm going to call it psychotic. I don't mean that to sound judgmental, but these moments where there's just this rift that happens in our head. I know I certainly had one many years ago where I was like, I don't want to be on this planet. And I didn't want to commit. I knew I wasn't going to harm myself. That's what I told to my closest friend and my mother. I'm like, I'm not going to harm myself. Just want you to know, but I just don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to be here right now. I don't like this world. And it took, actually, I had a kind of near-death experience after that. You and I will talk about that another time. And it really did, like you, wake me up to the privilege it is to be on the planet and the privilege that we have to share our souls and our gifts and our expertise with others. This is a privilege, you all. We have the privilege of being here on the planet. And that's not something to take lightly.
Right.
You know?
I feel like we resist so much, and we start resisting resistance, which creates more resistance. So really, if you think about the whole thing about everything is energy, vibration, frequency, and you think about the formula for getting the results that you desire, is you have to know what you want, which is defining that desire. Mm-hmm. And then you have to take aligned action. Mm-hmm. But you also have to decrease or eliminate the resistance that's in the way. So as you increase the aligned action, we're decreasing the resistance with a very clear focus on what we want, and you will get the results that you desire if you just do that.
I love that. That's a great way for us to end here. Now, everybody listening, you know that we have the badass freebie vault. Woohoo! And the crowd is so excited. It is amazing. Thousands and thousands of dollars of gifts, you all. Feel free to share this with your friends. It's all about giving. The people who come on this program give their time. I give my time because I love promoting great people to the world who have a positive message that can change our planet and bring peace and joy and all the good stuff, gratitude. and connection, so everyone knows they matter. These are the things I care about. So when you go to bit.ly/free from Dr. B, bit.ly/free from Dr. B, which is DRB, spelled DRB, free from Dr. B, bit.ly/free from Dr. B, then you will be able to have access to thousands and thousands of dollars of gifts. And I believe, Nicole, you are giving them a beliefs checklist. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a beliefs quiz, and that actually leads into uh, emails that describe all of the core beliefs that I go over in that quiz so that you can understand yourself on a deeper level. And then also you'll receive some other freebies in there with videos and sessions and things like
Nice.
from being part of that and taking that quiz for yourself. So you'll receive some freebies as well that are making aligned decisions, healing your inner child, and some other things along the way that
How
I
wonderful.
think
So
are fun.
you get to have the beliefs quiz, everybody, and you get to, find out about your BS, i.e. your belief system. All right.
I love
And it's good to replace the BS with what we really want, in terms of our belief system. I love that. So you all, again, you can find Nicole's bevy of goodies. I'm going to call it your bevy of goodies, including the bevy of goodies, including, the videos and so forth. It's going to be in the freebie vault. And I just personally am really hoping that Nicole becomes a badass exclusive sponsor. So you'll be able to find her hopefully at the top. We'll see. We'll see. So you all remember, even if you're not feeling like a badass, right? There are moments in life, there are moments in our businesses where we say, why the heck am I doing this? We might use a different word than heck, but why the heck am I doing this? And there are moments like that. They're part of being in business. You may not feel like a badass right now, but I know that indeed you are, or you would not have spent this time with us today. We are here for you every Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and bringing you amazing guests, magical guests like Nicole Majik, to you for you to catalyze your business and be the boldest badass you can be. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much, Nicole, and
you.
adios till next week.